show that is making accounting cool again.
I'm Will.
And I'm Reubs.
And today we are doing metrics that matter.
That's right. So in this session we dive a bit deeper beyond the P&L, beyond the balance sheet, into metrics that matter in your business. Whether you're an accountant, a business advisor, or you run your own business, we're going to be covering the nitty-gritty of the things you should be looking at.
Exactly. So a big change that we're having in the accounting industry is a lot of the data entry is getting automated by machine learning and algorithms. So what accountants are needing to do is understand how to do that advisory work. So by being able to look at the numbers and provide that advice to their clients around what changes they can make or what decisions they can make based on those numbers. What we want to do here is provide you with the knowledge on how to do that advisory off the metrics that you can get out of their business.
That's right. Cool. But before we get into, actually, what is our metric this week?
Oh, well, we're going to talk about productivity.
Fantastic. That's a topic that's close to my heart.
Yeah. So this is going to be a good one.
All right. Before we get into that, though, we have a quote of the week.
Quote of the week is by Mac Miller, the late Mac Miller.
R.I.P.
Yeah, man. So the quote is, "The life you live is more important than the words that you speak."
The life that you live is more important than the words that you speak.
Correct, yeah. And what I really like about that is, walk the walk rather than talk the talk.
Totally.
Which is, ironically, we are talking at the moment,
yes.
doing a podcast, but I think, we've been in business for almost a decade. We've done a lot more than just a podcast. This is just us sharing some of the things we've learned over the years. And I think just winding the clock back a bit, when I first started out in business, what was really important to me was showing people how successful I was when I wasn't successful at all. Yep. In fact, I had no fucking idea what I was doing.
Yes.
So what did I do? Well, I bought a BMW.
Great. What a good investment. Yeah,
it was awesome. I financed a BMW, and then I drove around and I told everyone about how much money, I didn't lie about how much money I was making, but I made it out to seem that I was extremely successful. And I really made a point to, puff my feathers up and make myself look like a big successful entrepreneur. I loved being called an entrepreneur. I called myself an entrepreneur.
I also used to do that until everyone started doing that.
Yeah, and now I'd never call myself an entrepreneur these days.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. If you've got to tell people you are, then you're probably not.
Yeah, what's your quote?
I'm not too sure.
The kumara does not speak of its own sweetness.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So I mean, these days, I think you can be called an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
but you shouldn't call yourself an entrepreneur. Well, an entrepreneur is a risk taker, right? No one stands up and goes, "I am a risk taker."
No, aren't we all? Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, the point I was making is that I spent a lot of time telling people and talking about all the great things that I'm going to do.
Yep.
And in recent years, I just realised, look, the best thing to do is just focus on solving a problem for people, and just focus on doing the mahi, and not worrying about telling people or not worrying about how I look to everyone. So
again, let the results speak for themselves, eh?
Correct. Yeah. So let the focus more on the life that I'm living and what I'm doing each day to improve the lives of other people, rather than worrying about talking and telling everyone how successful and how great I'm going to be. Because
and what we're up to, and
that's right. Yeah.
What we're going to do.
I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be great. But yeah. So that was when when that's a quote from Mac Miller I really like.
In South Auckland we call that fronting.
Fronting.
Do they do that in Johnsonville?
Fronting.
Fronting. They call it fronting.
Yeah.
When you're putting a front on, there's a front to you, and the substance of you is a lot, your actions, which is a lot less.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think a big thing is when I truly felt in my heart that I was successful, then I didn't have to tell everyone that I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once I felt like I was doing I feel like I was really improving the lives of other people. That's when I felt like I'm actually successful and I'm doing the right things. And then I didn't have to go around and telling everyone. I didn't need to drive. I got a Corolla now. I like my Corolla, man.
Awesome, man. Yeah.
It's got reactive cruise control.
It doesn't even have an engine light.
It doesn't have an engine light. They don't need engine lights.
Exactly.
The life you live is more important than the words that you speak.
All right, so metrics that matter. This week's metric is productivity. Now, productivity. What is productivity?
How many hours have we got here?
Yeah, we've only got about 20 minutes, so fit it into that.
That's right. So productivity, this is really getting into stuff that Reubs and I find really fascinating. So productivity is the ratio between the billable work you're doing and the non-billable work you're doing. So productive time is when you... sorry, I'm just going to take a step back here. We're talking about people that are billing time. So if you're in a service-based business, professional services, could be the trades, anything like that. So this has nothing to do with inventory or just feeling productive. It's about when the organisation is paying a wage. Is that wage they're paying you for that hour generating income because you're billing that time to a customer or a client? Or is that non-productive time because you're in an internal meeting or you are just answering miscellaneous emails or
planning
you're doing
or scheduling or something
something like that.
Non-client facing. So your billable time versus your non-billable time.
Correct. Yep. So let's say, for example, you work a 160-hour week.
Yep.
And then
week or month?
Sorry, that'd be impressive.
That'd be a very impressive week, but that'd be a pretty standard month.
Yeah. So let's say 160 hours for the month.
Yep.
And you did of that 120 of them were billable.
Yep.
And then 40 of them were non-billable. What we could say there is 3/4 of my time was billable, a quarter of my time was not billable, so I've got a 75% productivity. So we talk about productivity in terms of percentages.
Totally.
So I think the key thing with that metric there is it's a very, very important metric because your organisation is paying people to show up to work. And if you are in an organisation that you should be charging your time, you should try to maximize the amount of hours you're billing because that's how you generate your revenue. So 100% productivity is not achievable because you need to go and do other things. You need to use the bathroom. You need to have internal meetings. You need to have your Monday morning strategic planning meetings with the team and discuss workflow and all those things.
HR, internal IT, training, all that stuff.
I think 75% is a good target for a professional service organisation for an organisation productivity. So what I mean by that is if you were to take all of the hours worked in the organisation and and look at all the billable hours, you'd want to see around about 75%, which is really good. So what we might see is we have our directors may be sitting at 50 or 60% because they also need to do other things in the organisation. Business development and all
hiring and that
stuff. Totally. So and then you also might have an administrator who is
100%
100% non-billable. So and then you've got your other staff, which could be 80 or 85% or 90 is awesome. So if you're hitting 75% global productivity, you're smashing it. You're doing really, really well. That's what we want to see. And then another way to look at this as well is being able to filter out your non-productive staff. So what we might want to do is go, look, out of all of our billable staff, let's take all the administrators out of that. So we're just going to look at all the people who are employed to be billable.
On the tools. People that are like customer facing, on the tools, working on client work.
Client jobs, So again, that's if we're hitting under 75%, that's where we'd be going, look, cool, how can we improve this? Because we know that 25% of our time, for our billable staff, if they are 25% non-productive and we've got administrative staff here, we've got a bit of a problem.
Totally. Either the administrators aren't administrating or the billable staff aren't being billable.
That's right.
So that's over a day a week if you think about it like that. You got, it's Monday to Friday, and for somebody who's meant to be client facing, they're spending almost a whole day doing non-client work.
That's right.
You got to ask, what is it?
Yeah, because sometimes what we see quite often is, you'll see an organisation of 10 staff and you'll have 4 non-billable staff.
Right, yeah.
You'll have, maybe a practice manager and then an administrator and then a finance person and then
a director who's out selling.
A director who's out doing sales. You're like, well, that's now you're really, really admin heavy. So you've now got these other, I can't remember numbers here, 6 staff that are billable. Well, they're having to support all those people, so you end up having a very admin heavy organisation. It becomes really, really hard to grow now because all that cash is then getting sucked up into these non-billable wages. So what you want to do is when you grow your organisation, you want to be growing in a way that your billable is growing with your non-billable.
Right.
So again, 75% including your administrators, that's awesome. That's really, really good. And if you can hit 75% without your and then 75% without your administrators, That's sort of your minimum.
Okay, so into how it's calculated, so I understand this, it's the billable value of your time you've done, say, in the month or in whatever period you're looking at, divided by the sum of your total time in that period, yeah?
Correct.
So that would make it a number always less than 1?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So if I'm 110% productive, that's just not a thing, is it?
Not a thing, no.
If I tell you that I'm 110% productive.
That's not possible because because if you were to work 160 hours that are billable,
Yes.
your total time is 160 hours.
Yes, that's 100%.
Therefore, that's going to be 100%.
It's impossible.
It's impossible to be over 100% productive.
What about things like, sometimes I'm posed the question by people, what about sick leave or leave, or, how does that factor into it? Is that non-billable time?
Yeah. So what we do is when we are calculating our productivity, we remove any leave. So if you've got sick leave, annual leave, or bereavement leave, or whatever that is, we remove that from our total time figure.
Yes.
So let's say
that will mean that my total time will be lower, and therefore my productivity won't be affected.
That's correct. So let's say there's 160 hours in the month, and just to keep my maths really easy here, 40 hours were on leave.
Yeah, I took a week off.
Yep, correct.
Yeah, great.
That means our total time is only 100 hours. It's not 106. Sorry, you're right. Yeah.
So 120 hours is my total time, and then I may have done, 100 hours of billable work, and that would make me 80% productive.
Correct.
Yes, 100 hours of billable work, 20 hours of non-billable work, and then...
That's not quite 80%. We've butchered our numbers here.
We're butchering our numbers. Hopefully you can get the concept.
Yeah, so what the point we're trying to make there is that your productivity ignores leave.
Yeah.
Right, so it's the total hours worked. So the total amount of time you're actually getting paid to do work.
Yeah. Great. Another question I get posed from time to time from people is, what about training, where you've got like CPD hours or stuff that we may not want to disincentivize? The last thing I want my staff to do is to not educate themselves, not keep themselves up to date. So I don't want to be punishing them for training. What would you say to that?
Yeah, totally good question. So you'd be putting that down as non-billable time because it's not charged to the client.
Exactly.
But I think when you're looking at productivity and you're looking at these metrics here, it's important to understand that the staff member is not at fault necessarily for these results. So you can't go, this person is only 60% productive, they're not performing well.
Yeah, totally.
All this does is it encourages a good conversation. So if we go, right, well, their productivity was 60% this month, it's usually 75. Well, now we need to analyse that, and we need to go, right, well, why were they only 60%? And then you can go, right, well, and you can click into that data, and you can see, right, we actually spent 3 days on this course. And then by spending that time on the course, they've brought through some IP into our business because they can now answer questions that no one else could. So there's a lot more that's going on, but it's important to still have a look at these numbers, and then the number itself does not tell the full story. We need to look through and find out what's happening within those numbers, and then we can have conversations.
Productivity is such a small sliver in terms of a staff member's performance. They're a human being. They're not just about productivity and how much money they bring in, but it's also what they bring to the team and their attitude, and they contribute to your values and organisation and brand and all that sort of stuff. So you shouldn't be hiring based on productivity performance.
Absolutely. It's what we're trying to do is spot patterns, right? So if we were to look at a staff member's productivity, and we know we want them at 75%, or it could be 80%, right?
Yeah.
And then they're at 60%. Well, what we want to do is we go, right, well, is that a pattern or is that an outlier? So then what we want to do is click through into that data, and then we can see 12 months. Okay, well, this person's productivity is 89%, 84%, 86%, 79%, and now they're down at 60%. We go, well, this is actually an outlier in the data. So this doesn't actually represent how the staff member is performing, because they're genuinely doing really, really well, high productivity. And then you can see from that drop in productivity what caused that. It could be a training day, or it could be that there's a lot of internal meetings that month. So
they're training somebody else internally, because that's something that ties up two resources, right?
Exactly.
But it's essential, because how else do you communicate?
That's right.
And educate with them.
You need to have non-billable time. You need to have non-productive time, because if everyone's always billing, you don't have time to actually have your workflow meetings and prepare and sell and all these things.
No sales happen.
That's right. But what you don't want to see, which I've seen all too many times, is just consistent team productivity around 45 to 50%.
Right.
If you're hitting 45-50% month in, month out, well, then you've got a problem in your organisation because you're actually not generating enough revenue to cover the wages and to provide company profits, which will then allow you to grow.
Totally. A lot of people, I think, when we're talking about billable and non-billable time, they think, well, I don't invoice by the hour. That doesn't affect me. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, so what you're saying here is that there's there's a number of ways to run an engagement, but you could have an engagement that is fixed price, so you provide a fixed fee for the client, and the other one is that we're billing on the timesheets.
Correct. Yeah, so whether I'm an architect, engineer, accountant, or bookkeeper, or whatever.
That's right. Well, and you have a lot of people in the accounting industry. This is very common. You got some, should we call them thought leaders out there?
Yes.
That go, right, don't do timesheets. It's old school, and just go and do value-based billing.
Yeah.
Just go and bill your clients and do the work. The problem with this is, if you're not logging timesheets, you're actually having no visibility into what's happening in your practice. You don't know what your productivity of your staff are. It means you don't know who's performing, who do you give pay rises to, who do we provide extra support because they're struggling. We don't have any of that information.
No write-ons and write-offs.
We got no write-ons and write-offs. We don't know which clients are costing you money and which ones are highly valuable. We don't know which tasks you're working on are highly valuable, which ones you're losing money on. So without timesheets, you've got absolutely no transparency in the business.
I know.
Timesheets are fundamental.
Hard out.
To capturing, you need to know what's happening so you can improve these things.
Totally. I say to people, it's like, well, okay, great, value-based billing, that's awesome. That's where you're fixing the result for the customer at a price that the customer values and delivering it underneath that. But that's when measuring timesheets become most important, because how do you know if you've priced it too low or if you can actually deliver that at that price?
Oh, exactly.
That's even more important to timesheets. Then billing by the hour is easy. That's low risk because I just do lots of hours, build them up, and now and then I do a write-off because maybe I work too long or whatever. But when you start fixing fees, man, that's when your risk increases because the risk of overruns goes through the roof.
Absolutely. You might fix price a client at $2,000 and then you realise, or you don't, because as the director, you won't realise. Because as the director, you fixed price this job at $2,000 and then you got one of your juniors or your intermediate accountants to go and work on it. And then they go run up like 25, 30 hours on this job because what you didn't realise as the director when you priced the job, that there were intercompany transactions. They've just created a new trust and that trust has purchased 2 commercial properties and there's all of this work involved. And if you're not capturing timesheets, you can't see that you've hit your budget. You're not going to get that trigger in the system going, we've hit budget. And then as the director, I could go, right, well, we've hit budget on this job. I can go talk to, let's say it's Tim. Hey, Tim, what's going on here? And he's like, oh, this job's a nightmare. We've got all these intercompany transactions. I had no idea. As a director, I can now go talk to my client and say, hey, we need to lift your fee because of all these things are happening. Rather than 2, it's going to be $8,000. The client's like, oh yeah, that's fair enough, cool.
Totally.
But if we're not doing timesheets, we've got no idea that's happened. That's going to happen again and again and again. And then what you're doing, you're running your business off the fucking profit and loss, and you're wondering why there's no money in the bank. It's because all the information is sitting in the projects.
That's right. It's not in the profit and loss. That's not where you're getting these insights. You should be looking at your project.
Your profit and loss is what has happened, but if you want to see what is happening, what's the driver of the profit and loss? The driver of the profit and loss is your project accounting. Your project accounting comes from tracking your timesheets so you can see what your productivity is and see what your write-ons and write-offs are, and those 2 things feed into your ROIs and your average hourly rates. If you're not doing timesheets, you're going to get none of those metrics. You're going to have no idea which staff are productive, which ones are doing well, which ones need support, and which clients' fees need to be lifted.
Hard out, man. You're preaching to the choir. Sing it, sister.
Do your fucking timesheets, man.
No, they're essential. Yeah, totally.
So sorry, you get me wound up here, but
worked up as well.
What we're saying is Productivity. Let's bring it back a little bit.
Tone it down, all right.
Yeah. So productivity, very, very important metric. And what we want to be doing is looking at trying to keep our organisation productivity. Just using that 75% figure. This is just my opinion. All right. You can. There's probably other schools of thought out there on this, but I think 75% with your administrative team in there is exceptional. You're doing really, really, really well. If you take the administrators out of there, that's your minimum.
Totally. Yeah, it should be 80, 85.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, cool. What if I'm like a manager? I mean, it probably changes industry to industry, right? But imagine I've got 3 or 4 staff that work for me. They're on the tools all the time. They're hitting their 85% productivity, but I have to manage them. I've got my own work to do. I've got my own clients to meet. I've got my own invoices to send. But then I've also got to manage them. That's going to affect my productivity, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
So am I still expected would you recommend that I be up at 85%, or would it be a bit lower?
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think as a manager, managing people internally is an administrative task.
Yeah.
So delegating work, training people, ensuring people are doing working on the right things at the right times, they understand what they're doing. That's internal time.
Absolutely.
So I would expect a manager to have 60 to 70% productivity, perhaps on the lowest end of it. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So your staff that are supposed to be there smashing work out, you want them to be sitting at sort of 85, 90% billable, but that is not their job to make sure they're that billable.
Totally.
As a director, as an owner, you need to create a work environment where they can do that.
You need to be selling the jobs.
Yeah.
You need to have work for them to do,
That's
obviously.
right.
Yeah, you need to make sure that they're working on the right things at the right time. You need to be scheduling that so they know what they're doing and delivering it on time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important to understand that if you don't have the support infrastructure in place for your team, you can't expect them to be hitting these 85% targets. So, if, for example, if my job is to turn up to work and do accounting work, or do engineering work, or do architecture work, or do design work, but my inbox is full of admin activities, so I have to go and pick this up from the post office, and I need to go and do this, and then
internal meetings.
I've got internal meetings. I just constant internal meetings because this project isn't going well, and this guy needs to talk about this. I haven't created as a director, I haven't created the work environment where this person can just show up to work and be productive.
Yeah.
So ideally, as an employee who is supposed to be productive 85 or 90% of the time, I either turn up to work and my inbox is purely client related. Maybe I have a team meeting on a Monday morning and maybe a few drinks on a Friday afternoon.
Perfect.
And maybe a 15-minute catch up in the morning with my team to see how I'm going.
Yep.
That's the environment I want to create for my organisation. I don't want to just have admin flying everywhere for everyone to deal with.
Yeah.
Because then to increase your productivity, you want to look at where your time is going, analyze this non-productive time, break it down, get those timesheets of where you're actually spending that time from a non-productive perspective, and go, right, well actually we're spending 20 hours a week photocopying. Well, why don't we just get a student in, because we've got Sally over there who's $250 an hour billable, and she's spending on average 3 hours a week photocopying. That's $750 of billable time that we've now lost. Let's get a student in and pay them $17-18 an hour to do all the photocopying.
Yeah, totally.
Those are the things you need to be doing to increase your productivity, is analysing the non-productive time, and then from there we can look at lifting it by bringing in the resource to take off the admin activities from our highly billable staff.
Absolutely, yeah. You need to keep those star performers, as on the tools as possible, because that's what they're there to do, right?
Exactly.
You've got to be removing obstacles from them. So, yeah, that's your job as a manager, as a director, I think, isn't it?
That's right.
How often do you review productivity with a staff member?
So I think productivity, it's a good idea to review productivity weekly. Okay. But to review the performance, looking at your write-ons and write-offs, I think they should be done on a monthly basis.
Right, yeah.
And I'll explain why. Because generally your billing cycles are monthly. In most organisations, you have a monthly billing cycle.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is our write-ons and write-offs, if they're only occurring monthly, it's therefore hard to see what our write-ons and write-offs are weekly. So if we're looking at all of our metrics, so all of our metrics being productivity, write-off percentages, ROIs, average hourly rates, those are some key metrics we want to be looking at from a staff member's perspective. We can't get an accurate average hourly rate on a weekly basis because it doesn't look at the write-ons and write-offs. But over a month, because that month now has that adjustment by the write-ons and write-offs, we've got an accurate revenue picture. So we've got an accurate profit, we've got accurate ROI, we've got accurate average hourly rates.
Yeah. So at least monthly.
So at least monthly. Yeah. So you definitely need to be checking out your productivity on a monthly basis.
Totally.
Weekly is a good idea as well, but it's fundamental, I believe, in a professional service organisation. You need to be looking at these metrics on a monthly basis.
I think having this conversation is actually probably the single biggest step you can have. A lot of people don't set the expectation with their team members to say, this is the productivity I would like you to achieve. You know what I mean?
Where are the goalposts? When I turn up to work,
Yeah.
because there's two sorts of people. There are people that want to go out and run a business and make a lot of money and take on the risk and go change the world, right? Yeah. But there's also a lot of very, very talented, clever people who want to go work on $110,000, $120,000 salary.
Have a batch, have a boat.
Like all that.
No risk.
No risk.
Yeah.
Make a really good wage. Secure job, great for work satisfaction. They want all of that stuff, but they don't want the risk of running an organisation. Those people are highly motivated, highly driven, don't want the risk. They want to know where the goalposts are.
Yeah.
What's expected of me? If I want to buy this BMW, if I want to buy all these nice things, I need my salary to be here. But if the business can't afford to pay me here, well, how do I get there?
Exactly.
Well, we do that through lifting your productivity, which increases, so that lifts your average hourly rates, and then from there we want to look at lifting the billable rates, and not creating more write-offs through the lift of billable rates. And then from there what we're doing is we're generating more revenue for the organisation, which can in turn pay the staff member better. So by lifting your productivity, you're able to make more money for the organisation, you can pay your staff better, you attract more talent.
And it's
just a beautiful cycle where the business starts to grow. And then what you're doing is you're reducing those administrative tasks off your billable staff so they can be more productive. There's more money in the business, and then because you're doing a great job, your clients talk to their friends, and you attract more clients to your business. And that's how business grows. Alternatively, you don't do timesheets. And you've got no idea what's going on.
Fantastic. That reminds me a lot of. I don't actually have too much time.
Yeah, we've got to probably move on shortly.
That reminds me of the E-myth. Is it Michael Gerber? I think he talked about like the manager and the technician and the entrepreneur, and how they're three different people.
Yes.
And when you start out in business, some people start from that technician perspective. They're an awesome architect, awesome designer, awesome accountant, but then they get thrown into a management role, or they decide to go out on their own, and they suddenly need to be this whole other character, this entrepreneur who must also be a manager, who must also be a good accountant. So clearly defined roles, I think, is really important when you're dealing with your team, to say, this is your role, these are the goalposts I expect from someone in that role in order to make this whole machine work effectively.
100%, man. Yeah. You want to go, this is your role, this is what's expected of you, these are the metrics, these are your KPIs that we're going to track, and if you hit these, we can lift your salary.
Yeah.
And when we lift your salary, we're going to lift your billable rate.
Totally.
And because if we lift your billable rate and your productivity is up, the company makes more money, so we can pay you more, and everyone wins.
Simple. Yeah, people need those metrics, and productivity is kind of the minimum of what you would need to start that conversation.
Yeah. The productivity is easy to get. It's the total billable hour. So that's the billable hours divided by total hours, excluding the leave.
Yeah.
Everyone should be able to get that. The write-ups and write-offs and the write-off percentages and ROIs and average hourly, a bit more complicated to calculate.
Totally. Yeah, we'll cover that in a later session, but
that's exactly right.
Productivity is an easy win.
It's an easy win. Yeah. What's our productivity? What are our targets from an individual level, and what's our target at an organisation level? And then from there, just start tracking that and see how things fall into place.
What gets measured gets managed, eh?
Oh yeah.
All right, so we'll wrap that up there. That's it on Metrics That Matter. We'll catch you next week for another episode of Will's Fuck Ups and Failures.
Yeah, good one coming. So looking forward to it.
Okay,
sweet.
Yeah.
Hey guys, see you then.